Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Chapter 20. We're talking about animal tissues at the moment. The end of the last video, we finished up talking about epithelial tissue. I said, but forgot to show the slide, that the way you name epithelial tissues is you tell me how many layers are present first, and then tell me what is the shape of the cell. Simple versus stratified. So what would you call a tissue that is one layer of cells that are roughly equal in all dimensions? One layer is simple, roughly equal in all dimensions is cuboidal, so the name of that is simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. What would you call several layers of cells that are wider than they are tall? You would say that is stratified squamous. Stratified means several layers. Wider than they are tall means a flat squished cell that is squamous. All right. Let's move on from epithelial tissue to connective tissue. There are a number of varieties of connective tissue, and to be fair, connective tissue is the most complicated variety of tissues because there are so many different kinds. And I understand, we'll talk about several of them, and I understand how they might not feel like they're very related to each other, but they are. It's just that the details of how they're related to each other gets kind of deep, and it gets deeper than we really care to get into. So I hate to be this way, and I hate to say it this way, but just trust me, they are in fact related to each other. All right, our first variety of connective tissue is so-called loose connective tissue. It's called loose because it has a loose weave. I want you to imagine the difference between window screen and t-shirt material. They're both woven. Which one has the looser weave? If you held one up in front of your face, which one would you be able to see through easiest? And the answer is, obviously, you'll be able to see through window screen a lot easier than you can see through a t-shirt. The t-shirt has a much tighter weave, and the window screen has a much looser weave. And all right, fine, for all you stitch heads out there, yes, a t-shirt is actually knit. Fine. Let's talk about woven bed sheets then. Which one can you see through? The window screen or a bed sheet. Yeah, loose weave versus a dense weave. Loose connective tissues are so-called loose because they have a loose weave. There's lots of space between the fibers. They're made, the fibers that are used to make this loose weave are collagen and elastin. Collagen is a tough fiber. It's very strong. It's actually the most abundant tissue, most abundant protein in your body is collagen. It's everywhere. Elastic fibers are for stretch and recoil. Stretch and recoil. The reason why old people have wrinkles on their face is because elastic fibers break as we age and they don't get replaced. Collagen fibers don't break, or they don't break easily. Elastic fibers do, and they don't get replaced. If you don't care about what you look like at age 40, feel free to spend all your time in the sun. Fibrous connective tissue is similar to loose in that it's made out of the same stuff. It's just that this fibrous is the dense connective tissue. It has a dense weave. Forgot to give you an example of a loose tissue. If we can look here, have you ever fixed chicken breast? Have you ever peeled the skin off of chicken breast? When you peel the skin off of chicken breast, there's this filmy stuff that kind of sticks or glues the skin to the meat. That's loose connective tissue. It's a particular kind of tissue called a relar connective tissue. But that is loose connective tissue. Another example is fat. Fat is loose connective tissue. We have a variety. We have a number of loose connective tissues. Dense connective tissue has densely packed collagen fibers like tendons and ligaments. If you've ever eaten a chicken leg, there's that little tag, that little flag thing on the side of the chicken leg, right? That little piece of gristle that most people don't like. That is specifically a tendon. It's a tendon that connects the the muscle to the bone. That weird clear bit at the end of the chicken leg, the end of the chicken muscle, that's another tendon. And most people don't like to eat them. So tendons, actually this right here, see that little piece sticking out right there? That's that little tendon that connects this muscle to bone. Adipose tissue is a variety of loose connective tissue. We see that it's got a very loose weave. See that? Very loose weave. Adipose tissue is the proper name for fat. Adipose tissue stores energy by literally storing liquid oil. If you've ever actually fixed chicken or fixed any kind of meat that had lots of fat in it, your fingers got really greasy really quickly. That's because the fat tissue, the fat cells themselves, break really easy, and then it just smears. It just releases liquid oil all over your fingers. Our next kind of connective tissue is cartilage. And again, here's a chicken leg. That rigid piece that's at the end of the chicken leg when you eat a chicken leg that's kind of crunchy if you actually eat it, that is cartilage. You have cartilage all over your body. The end of your nose is cartilage. Your ears are cartilage. Let's do an experiment real quick together. Take your fingers and touch the soft part of your tummy. Okay? And now push, 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 and move up towards your chest until you encounter your rib cage. All right? You feel your rib cage right there? You feel that bone? You don't feel bone right there. You're actually feeling cartilage. This first portion of your rib cage is not bone. This outermost portion of your rib cage right here, that is cartilage. If you push on it, it feels as hard as bone. Some cartilage is actually quite tough. Other cartilage is actually quite squishy. Bone is our next type of connective tissue. Obviously, we all know what bone looks like. Again, let's go back to our chicken leg. That's what's left, and we're done. Nibbling or chewing the meat, slicing the meat, ripping the meat off of the chicken bone. We know what bone looks like. Bone is actually very tough. It's the second toughest substance in your body. Bone has a calcified matrix. So if you can imagine how to make a bone, take a big wad of chicken wire and press and bend and squish and shape that chicken wire into the general shape of a bone. All right? So now we've got this general shape of a bone made of chicken wire. Now take that chicken wire and dip it in liquid concrete and bring it out and then let that concrete set up around that chicken wire. That's basically how bones are made. As in the wire is a collagen matrix. Again, collagen just like we find in the dermis of our skin, collagen like we find in our hair and our fingernails. It's a matrix of fibers that then has calcium mineral salts deposited on it. Chicken wire covered in concrete, collagen web covered in calcium salts, calcified matrix. Our last variety of connective tissue is blood. This is actually a close-up picture of what a red blood cell truly looks like. It kind of looks like an inner tube a little bit. If we think about these two right here, well, okay, I can understand maybe how bone and cartilage are related. But how are blood and bone related? Is blood even a tissue? I mean, I thought tissue was like floppy stuff you could hold in your hand, stuff that you could stretch or whatever. Blood is a tissue. It is specifically the only liquid tissue that you have. How are they related to each other? This goes back to that underlying topic that I said, yeah, they are related, but the answer for how they're related goes a lot deeper than we care to go to. I'll give you one small way in which bone and blood are related, and that is that all of your blood is actually made inside of your bones. The cells that make blood cells are contained within your bone marrow. That's why people that have leukemia, people that have white blood cell cancer, have to have bone marrow transplants. They've got to get healthy bone marrow from a healthy donor. Here are a bunch of the different connective tissues. This is an elbow. Obviously, the easiest connective tissue to imagine is bone. So here we see the bones. Notice how the bones have this spongy material at the tips, and then they're hollow down the length of them. That red bone marrow, when you're young, is located in this spongy material in your long bones. But when you get to be old like me, you have a lot less of it in your long bones, and mostly it's like in your rib cage. Bone, blood, We said that bone and blood are related to each other. Next is cartilage. Just like the end of that chicken leg has cartilage on it, it's really hard to see in this picture, but there's a little blue line right here. And this little blue line right here is a layer of cartilage that is protecting the end of the humerus. And this is, like I said, this is cartilage, and its job is to protect the bone. Dense connective tissue, tendons and ligaments. Here is a tendon that is connecting this muscle to this bone. Here is a ligament attaching this bone to bone. All right? Tendons and ligaments are dense connective tissue. We all have a little bit of fat underneath of our skin, so here is that loose connective tissue underneath of our skin, and a little bit more loose connective tissue that ties the skin itself to the adipose, to the skin itself. Connective tissue.